Welcome. Hi, everybody. So the question of the week, the big question of the week is, was I born to be an optimist? Was I born to be a pessimist? Do I have a choice? Is this something that I was born with, or is this something that I develop on my own? That's the question. I think the first thing to talk about is, are you an optimist or are you a pessimist? So as we talk about the conversation, I think everybody should try to think about it. And at the end, we'll do an exercise so that everybody can identify with who they are after we do our conversation. So let me begin by saying something that will blow you away, blow everybody here away. Whether there's 5 people in a room, 500 people in a room, or 5,000 people in a room, the bottom line is we are all born as optimists. All children are born to be optimistic. And up until the age of 6, it's just pretty natural, unless you're living under dire circumstances, that up until the age of 6, if you're living in a good environment, up until the age of 6, you will stay optimistic. So the question is, why, if we're all born to be optimists, what happens? What really happens? So when we talk about being born to be an optimist, what does that mean? A little child, when you go over to a little kid and you say to them, you show them a movie, and in one movie, somebody is a very fast runner, and in the other movie, somebody is a very slow runner. They can hardly make it to the end. And you say to the little child, which one are you? Are you the slow runner or are you the fast runner? Oh no, I'm the fast runner, and I can run even faster than that kid. That's how optimistic children are. They identify with the winner when they're kids. Not only do they identify with the winner, but they'll tell you, I'm even better. They'll say, how are you doing in school? I love school. I love my friends. My friends love me. That's a typical 3 or 4-year-old answer. And then you go to the nursery school teacher and you say, how is this kid doing in school? And the nursery school teacher will say, not too good. They're not doing good in the activity part. They're not doing that good with friends. They have accidents in school, but the kid does not see it that way. A little child sees himself as being very optimistic. He's very positive about himself. And that positivism only starts changing when the kid is about 6 years old. So that's a really good question. Why does it start changing at the age of 6? I'm not going to focus on it, but really, if you think about it, the reason it changes at the age of 6 is probably because by that time, the kid has already started hearing negative things. The child has already started hearing, like the child will say, oh, I'm the fastest runner. But that child is not going to be put in the front of the line because they're really not a fast runner. So what happens? That child starts being put in the 4th place in line or the 10th place in line. And little by little, that pessimism starts sinking into the reality of this child. And instead of this child being so incredibly pure and optimistic and feeling like I'm the best, because the child is suddenly put in the back of the line, because the child is suddenly taken out for timeout, for misbehaving, because the child is not on top of the class, little by little, this little child develops a non-optimistic view of life. So let's just put that on the board immediately. So then comes reality. Reality is you can be an optimist. Okay, now you're taking the choices. You're making a decision on your life. You can be an optimist. You can be a realist, or you can be a pessimist. If you're going to be a pessimist, there's no question about it. Pessimism leads to destruction. It's a destructive way to be. There is nothing good about being a pessimist. If you're going to be a realist, you lack imagination. You're a realist. Life is pretty much a flat line. If you're an optimist, you're opening up doors for yourself. You're creating possibilities for yourself. You're creating worlds that could possibly happen for you. Things that nobody else would dream of. You're the optimist. You see yourself in a great marriage. You see yourself with a great boyfriend or girlfriend. You see very, very positive things for yourself. So there's a question like, how does somebody become that? Well, if a mother sits down by the table and starts the breakfast table by saying, tell me something good that's going to happen to you today. That starts developing an optimistic outlook. Tell me something good that's going to happen to you today. That's the conversation at the breakfast table. And if that's the conversation, well, I'm going to look forward to something good happening today. Oh, today I'm going to be the best in my class. I'm going to have the best recess. It's a way of being optimistic. On the other hand, if a mother looks at things in a negative kind of way, that child is going to develop a negative attitude toward things. It's what you focus on. And when people focus on good things happen. When people focus on negative things, they're putting themselves in a destructive pattern. So very, very important to be an optimistic person. A perfect example of it, I just can't help myself over here, because a perfect example of an optimistic person is really, I've been very blessed to be brought up by a mother who is eternally optimistic, eternally. When my mother, we used to laugh about this, when my mother would tell stories about being in Mauthausen, in the concentration camp, where other people would talk about the concentration camp and tears would come down from their eyes, because tears should come down. They saw death, they saw starvation, they saw humiliation, they saw terrible, terrible things. But yet my mother saw the same things. She experienced the same things. So the question is, how was she optimistic coming out of Mauthausen concentration camp? Well, when my mother would talk about Mauthausen concentration camp, she would talk about how they laid in the grass and looked at the beautiful blue sky, the stars in the sky, the green grass. Now, that is incredible optimism. It's almost unrealistic, but we would always laugh as children because we would say that my mother is the only person that could tell you a story about the concentration camp. And I'm embarrassed to say this, you almost wish you were there, because of the way that she described it, because of the way that she described humanity, because of the way that she described the story of how she took hot soup to her uncle, and that was his last night of being alive. But how proud she felt that she saw Avrami Bachi gave him hot soup, and by the next morning he wasn't alive anymore, but at least he had the hot soup, and at least he found out that his whole family was still alive. And that is an optimist. How do you become that way? How does someone become that way? So we're going to talk about that because I want to give more examples of optimism. I'm going to give you another example, present day example. During this year, during the winter, there were a couple of bad days. There was one day that was a very snowy, blizzardy day. It was very icy. Well, of course, all the people in New York City, all our angry New Yorkers, everybody's angry and saying terrible things and bumping into each other and very little kindness. And there's this guy at a soubrette standing outside in the freezing rain, probably wearing about 4 pairs of gloves because it was such a cold day. It was one of the below zero days, wearing a hat, mask around his head, dressed really warm, snow, and there he is out on the street, on the corner, in a soubrette thing, no protection from the rain. He's selling his hot dogs, he's selling his sodas, and I wanted to have a Diet Coke. So I happened to have been passing in a car. I was in a car. I put down my window and I yelled out to him, "Can I get a Diet Coke?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "How are you?" And his answer was, you ready for this? I'm in the car. He's out there. His answer was, "How are you?" "I'm living the dream." Living the dream. I thought to myself, this guy is living the dream. He's out in weather that's below zero, freezing cold, and he's living the dream. I took that away and I said to myself, you know what? At least for one day, Dr. Faye, for one day, anybody that asks you today, how are you? I'm going to say living the dream. And you know, I did it. And you know what my response was most of the day? People looked at me like, Are you feeling okay? What drugs are you on? Living the dream? Who says that kind of an answer? But I will say that on that day, I felt like I was spreading around goodwill, because everybody that I went over to and I said to them, living the dream, they walked away and they did the living the dream to the next person. Because if someone in a soubrette bus can be living the dream, if my mother in a concentration camp can look at the blue skies and the stars and say, what a beautiful night it is. My mother, an amputee, missing a leg, right? If you talk to her, she will say to you, I'm so lucky. Ma, why are you so lucky? If I wasn't missing a leg, I wouldn't have a 24-hour aid. How does she do that? How does somebody become that way? Shlomo, my husband, he always used to say, my mother is the only person that we put up a ramp for her wheelchair and we took down the ramp because she refused to continue being in a wheelchair. She insisted on being able to walk with her prosthetic. How does somebody become that way? How do we become that positive person? Are we missing a leg? No. Are we standing in a soubrette truck in the freezing cold rain? No. Most of us have incredible lives. We live with a roof above our heads. We have air conditioning. We have lights. We have iPhones. We have Zooms. We have incredible, incredible lives. And are any of us able to say that we are optimists the way this soubrette guy was, the way my mother is? Is that, how do people do it? How do they do it? Of course, many of you, especially RAJEs, have heard this story about Nechama. Nechama was a young girl who had terrible, terrible cancer. Such bad cancer that she could not even leave the hospital for a short period of time before she died so that she could have a dream come true. And that was what my husband Shlomo loved. He loved giving dreams to people that wouldn't be able to have that. It's like a Make-A-Wish Foundation. Shlomo had a dream team. And in his dream team, he decided he was going to give Nechama a dream. But it was impossible because Nechama couldn't leave the hospital. But Nechama always had a smile on her face. And he used to say to Nechama, Nechama, if you could do something, what would it be? She said, oh, if I could do something, it would be to swim with the dolphins. And as she was saying it, you could see on her face that she had the joy of almost swimming with the dolphins. She had that joy whether she did or whether she didn't. But at the end, this optimistic girl, this girl who believed in dreams, she was able to swim with the dolphins before she left this world. And she had her dream. And optimism, it leads to the possibility of having the dream come true. If you're not optimistic, there is no dream. But if you're optimistic, you have the dream, you have the goal, you have an idea of where you could go, what your vision is, where you're going to go. And that's the goal of optimism. Negativism, pessimism, what does it do? It gives you a dead end. It's destructive. You're not going anywhere with pessimism. You're not going in your head to swim with the dolphins. You're not looking at the blue skies up above. You're certainly not living the dream. You're living the nightmare because you've created a life of pessimism. You've created a life of negativity, of destruction. So I think that this all is really very important. And how do we maintain this idea, this childhood optimism? We have the opportunity to do it by we do it. We're human beings with choices. When you're an optimistic person, people surround you. People are magnetized to you. They want to be around you if you're an optimistic person. You can't get away from people. They want to be near you. If you're a pessimistic person, you actually alienate people. People don't want to be near you. They don't want the pessimism. Why? It's contagious. Studies show if you have friends that are optimistic, you will be optimistic. If you surround yourself with optimistic people, you will be an optimistic person. If you surround yourself with pessimistic people, you will be that pessimistic person. So again, you have choices. Who are you going to surround yourself with? Are you going to surround yourself with optimistic people so that you feel good and people are attracted to you? Or are you going to surround yourself with pessimism and people will alienate, people will run away from you. Family will run away from you. Friends will run away from you. They won't be attracted to being around you. Optimism, very important to know this. Optimism leads to taking opportunities. If you're an optimist, there are so many possibilities and you're going to take those opportunities. What do you get from taking opportunities? Taking opportunities leads to success because you have opportunities. Opportunities leads to success. What does success lead to? Success leads to more motivation and more possibility for more opportunities. So all you're doing is you're climbing the ladder of good, 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 better. So optimism leads to taking opportunities. Taking opportunities leads to successes. Successes lead to more motivation for more successes. So now, not only are you an optimistic person and you feel good inside, not only are you an optimistic person and you're attracting people and they want to be around you, but also being an optimist is a person that will be a successful person, because an optimist will not look at things as failures. I'll give you an example. A girl, she's gone out with 30 different guys. A pessimistic girl, oh my God, I've gone out with 30 guys, so many guys, I'm never gonna get there. What does an optimistic person do? I've gone out with 30. What does that mean? I'm so close to finding the right guy. If I've already gone out with 30, well, it's probably going to be number 31 that's going to be the right guy, or number 32 for sure. My past is behind me. So it's all a matter of outlook. Is it going to be pessimism? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going through this. Or is it going to be optimism, looking forward to the opportunities that are there for me, looking forward to the opportunities that I could possibly have, the successes that I will have in my life. And that's a very important part. So are you going to be living the dream? Are you going to be the optimistic person that attracts people? Are you going to be the optimistic person that takes advantage of every opportunity and has a lot of successes? Or are you going to be the pessimistic person? It's a choice. I'll give you an example. Today, perfect example. I hope the person that's hearing this and knows that they are this person, because they're on here right now. I wonder if they'll recognize themselves. So today, I'm up here upstate, but the weather was very, very bad today. It was raining and there was thunderstorms and my Wi-Fi went dead. This was probably at around 5 o'clock. So at 5 o'clock, I thought, there's no way that I can do the class. It's 5 o'clock, 5:30 already, thunderstorms, lightning, no Wi-Fi. The only way that I could possibly do the class was if I would drive over to somebody else's house, set myself up over there, do the whole class from there, and then moving all my stuff over. And I was thinking, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have to, I said, these were the words exactly that I thought to myself. I don't have to do this. I don't have to do this, right? If I say to myself, I don't have to do this, what happens? I feel like it's an obligation, something that I have to do. But as I'm talking to her, and she said to me, oh, come on, do you want to do it? I realized, I said to myself, Dr. Faye, you have a blessing. It's not that you have to do this. You get to do this. You get to do this. You have the opportunity that you get to do this amazing class. And with that, I got so excited. I ran, collected all my stuff. And of course, what happens? It was just a test from God. My Wi-Fi went on. I didn't even have to leave. So here I am. I'm in the same place that I'm supposed to be. And I passed my test. It wasn't about having to do it. I didn't have to do it. I have the opportunity. I get to do this. Now imagine if in your head, you change the whole outlook of all the things you have to do. I have to wake up in the morning. I have to go to work. I have to prepare food for myself or my mother or my father or my whoever, my children. Instead of saying to yourself, I have to do this, you say to yourself, I get to do this. I get to do this. I have arms, I have legs, I have a mouth to talk from. I get to do this. How positive is that kind of expression when you think about it from that way, instead of thinking about things from a drudgery point of view? And believe me, every single thing that you have in your life or that I have in my life, we could look at it from the point of view of, I have to do this, or we could look at it from the point of view, I get to do this. And I love that word, that I could say, I get to do this. It's a celebration of life. It's a celebration of all the gifts that God has given me, that I get to do all of this stuff. So I think on that, there's a lot of information that I gave over. Now I want to talk about, unless somebody wants to say something, I can go on, because I would like to talk about how do we get away from thinking negatively? How do we actually accomplish this? What is the exercise that we need to do to get to this place of positivity? How do we condition ourselves to become a positive person? And I kind of just gave away the answer with that key word. There's two of them I'm going to do over here. I want to talk about conditioning, and I want to talk about mindfulness, two words that we've been talking about a lot in the past few months. So let's talk about conditioning. We've been talking about that a lot. Conditioning means you create a situation where you are conditioning yourself. We always talk about exercise. How do you become a runner for a marathon? Do you become a runner for a marathon by deciding, oh, you know what, it's October 15th, the marathon is November 15th, I'm gonna run in a month from now, I'm gonna do the 26-mile marathon. No, no, no. How do you get to do a 26-mile marathon? You decide the year before, I'm gonna do a 26-mile, or 8 months before, I'm gonna do a 26-mile marathon, and you start with 1 mile, 3 miles, 5 miles, 9 miles, 11 miles, and you get to your 26-mile marathon. How do you get there? By conditioning your body to become ready to do this marathon. This is the same kind of situation. So let's talk about conditioning, okay? Here it is. I'm in my car. I'm ready to park. Someone takes the parking spot that I wanted. So what happens? I make a phone call. I start complaining to everybody. I can't believe what just happened. I had a parking spot. It was all ready for me. And then this guy backed up into the parking spot. And I go and I repeat the story 10 times to everybody I know. I had the worst day. The parking spot, it was right there. Somebody took my parking spot. How many times am I going to repeat that story? As many times as people are going to listen. I'm going to keep repeating this horrible story. And I'm going to keep talking about how horrible it is that this person took my parking spot. What am I doing? I'm conditioning negative behavior. I'm conditioning I'm conditioning myself into pessimism. I can't believe it. The next time somebody tries to take my parking spot, I'm going to make sure to get in there much more quickly than they get in there, so nobody will be able to do that to me again, right? We'll repeat the story 100 times. Now, let's say, for example, on that same day, I'm crossing the street on Avenue J. As I'm crossing the street on Avenue J, I'm going from one side of the avenue to the other side of the avenue. There's a guy parked in the crosswalk, and he moves his car back 3 inches so that I'm not walking in the street. He moves the car. Do you think I'm going to go repeat to 100 people this wonderful thing that happened? No, no, no. I'm going to be busy telling my story about the guy who took my parking spot. Why? Because that's the story I'm used to telling. I've conditioned myself to repeat negative stories. Now, what if instead of repeating negative stories, I decide to repeat the other story? You're never going to believe what happened. I was crossing over the avenue on Avenue J. I was going to go into the crosswalk. This guy backed his car up so I could cross over, and he really was so nice. And then I go and I tell that story over 15 times. What's happening? I'm conditioning my mouth in the same way that I'm conditioning my body for a 26-mile marathon. I'm conditioning my mouth to tell good stories. I'm conditioning my mouth that I should be able to tell good stories. I'm going to tell you good things that happened to me. I went to the bakery and I was really in a big rush, and somebody else was in front of me and they had 10 items and I just had one little cheese Danish. And the guy said to me, oh, go ahead of me. I'm going to go and repeat that story. Great guy. I was in the bakery, and this guy let me go ahead of him because I only had one cheese there. How many people repeat a story like that? No one. We're too busy talking about the guy that cut us off in the line, the guy that went into the coffee line ahead of me, the guy who cut ahead of me in the easy pass. We're so busy telling negative stories and conditioning our mouth to tell negative stories. Those negative stories, that makes us a pessimist, because we're telling negative stories that's going to create a negative outlook, a negative future. If I'm thinking about the guy that's cutting me off all the time, then what am I thinking about? Oh, in the future, he's going to cut me off again. But if I'm thinking about all the positive stories, if I'm thinking about all the good things that's happening, what happens? For the future, I'm going to be thinking about all the positive things that are going on. And I have a positive outlook. And guess what I'm becoming? I am becoming an optimist. I am not going to be a pessimist. I'm not going to be a realist. I'm not going to be destructive, which is a pessimist. I'm not going to be a realist where I lack imagination. I'm going to be an optimist, which means I'm going to look for the positive in things. I'm going to be an optimist. I'm going to be Nechama, who died of cancer, with a smile because she wanted it. Her dream was the dolphins, and she dreamed about it, and it gave her a smile. And I'm going to be this guy living the dream, a smile on his face in freezing cold weather. And I'm going to be my mother, an amputee, who says, I can't believe I'm missing a leg. How lucky I am. I have a 24-hour aid. How lucky I am that I could look at the blue skies. Always, always a positive, positive story. So we need to condition ourselves to tell positive stories. That's one way to become an optimist. Another way to become an optimist is, this one is a very personal one. This is my way of looking at being a positive. Now, it's my way. It's kind of forced. I don't have a choice. I'm not my mother. My mother's Pollyanna. She can turn things around and be the most positive person. Now, for me, it's going to be a little bit complicated, but it may work for some of you. All of you know, I'm sure, because you're all educated, college students, college graduates, graduate students. It's always an honor, Rabbi Katzin. It's always an honor to be talking to our RAJE students. So we all know about Pavlov, right? And his dog, and what happened with Pavlov, right? He would give the dog a good candy. The dog would respond by doing something good. It was positive reinforcement. It's Pavlovian. We all know about it. You give a child something good, they'll respond in a positive way, positive reinforcement. You give negative reinforcement, it's going to be a negative. It's not going to happen. That behavior is not going to happen. Well, for me, how does this work? When I am positive, when I'm in a positive mood, when I feel good about things, my body, it's a physical symptomatic. My body actually feels good. It's a good feeling. If I have negative thoughts, my throat starts constricting, my blood pressure starts going up. I literally have negative physical symptoms. Now, if I have negative physical symptoms and I want to stay alive for a while, right? I know that I need to avoid negativity. I need to avoid pessimism. If I have optimism in my life, if I have positivism in my life, I know I feel really good. I can do a 30-mile bike ride, a 50-mile bike ride. I can do anything because I feel really, really good. So for me, it's very Pavlovian. I avoid pessimism. I avoid negativity because I know it's going to have a negative reaction on me physically, symptomatically. And I know if I'm around a positive person, if I can think of things in a very positive way and avoid the negative thinking process, I will feel very good. So for me, it's about mindfulness. It's about being very aware and thinking before I do things. It's about thinking, am I going into a situation that's going to be a very good situation, an optimistic situation? And if it's not, I will create it and make it be a positive situation. How does somebody do that? What we said before. I don't have to be in this class. I get to be in this class. I have an opportunity to look at things from a very positive point of view. It's raining outside. I love to listen to the sound of the rain. It's a positive experience. Anything that is something that I have to do becomes something that I get to do. Do I think of being with my mother as something I have to do that? No, no, no. I say to myself, how lucky I am that I get to do this, that I get to do Shabbos with my mother, 92 years old. Somebody else might think negative, but I can't, because my Pavlovian response to being negative will affect me negatively, and I want to be positive. So I look at it and I say, wow, I'm so lucky that I get to take care of my mother. I'm so lucky that I get to have 30 people at my Friday night table. I love it when people say, oh my gosh, you really do that? I want to say to them, I am the luckiest person in the world. How much I miss my Friday nights. I can't wait to be there on my Friday nights, to be there together to serve my 30 children. And there it is. So there we
Dr.
are.
Faye.
I'm in. Yes.
Yeah, it's Mark. How you doing?
Fantastic hearing your voice.
Yeah, likewise. So I just wanted to say that this reminds me actually of something that Tony Robbins talks about. So I took this like seven-day comeback challenge he was doing on Facebook. Sorry if I'm out of breath. I'm like in the middle of a run, but he talks about like this thing called changing your story, right? And so the story is basically what you tell yourself when a certain situation arises. He calls it, you have the responsibility, like responsibility, but you have the ability to respond to any given circumstance or situation in accordance with your own liking. So you could perceive it to be negative, or you could perceive it to be positive. And I think that teaching is, directly associated with what you're talking about, which is a great reminder, and certainly an exercise that needs to be committed to on a daily basis. But I just wanted to mention that.
I love it. And I'm going to take what you just said. I'm going to hand the baton over to Rabbi Katzin, because Rabbi Katzin always talks about perception. It's your perception of things. So Rabbi Katzin, I think we would love to hear from you.
Dr. When I heard, I first of all thought, that is the most important class idea I heard. Dr. Faye,
Yep.
You're with me, yes?
Yes.
That is the most important. The interesting thing that every time I hear you, I think that is the most important.
Yep.
But this is absolutely the most important. It's absolutely must. I'm so happy we're recording it. And I was thinking, I would love to bring you to organizations. I would love to bring you to groups of people. This is something, husband and wife, they must hear that before, right? Parents, they must hear that. This is something so essential, like breathing. So maybe a thought that I remember, especially about physical response. There is a place when the Jewish people in the desert and there is no water, and they found water, but they could not drink these waters because they are bitter. Yeah. And Baal Shem Tov says, not the waters were bitter, but the people were bitter.
Excellent.
And I remember Rabbi Tversky speaks about it. He says, me as a psychiatrist, I can tell you that people suffering from depression, it changes their taste, their perceptions, their sensations. They experience world differently. So your negative bitter perception creates physically bitter taste. If that's so powerful, we can say the opposite. The positive perception can create sweetness in life.
I love that. Yeah, it's true. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. It's true. It's true. I think it's very important for each person to look at themselves and say, who am I? Am I the optimistic person? Am I the child that I was as a child, where I saw things in a positive way? Or did I become a pessimist? And it's very hard for people to self-identify, to say, that's who I am. But I think it's very important. I think it's very important to recognize yourself and be aware of yourself and recognize the idea that the energy that you walk around with is the energy that you spread around. And people will be attracted to you. People will want to be with you if you are a positive person. And I love the idea of what Mark just said in terms of creating your own reality. That's always what you talk about, Rabbi Katzin, that it's about your perspective. And those waters, yeah, were those waters really bitter? Or was it really the people that tasted it that allowed it to be bitter? Would my mother drink the water and say it's bitter? No, never. To my mother, it would always be sweet, like oranges, you know? Yeah.
Dr. Faye, can I say one thing?
Absolutely, thank you.
I've been thinking on going on a specific diet, but it's not the ordinary diet. Tell me if you agree. I was thinking about on going on a news diet, so that I could shield myself from the constant barrage of negativity on a day-to-day basis. I mean, you spoke about this childlike state in which our dreams and aspirations were in full effect and nothing could affect us, right? So I feel like, we as human beings were conditioned through our environment and our settings that we find ourselves in to basically shatter, so to speak, our original aspirations. So I was thinking, especially in light of today's awfully negative environment, I was thinking about going on, on a news diet, just not watching any news, not listening to any news, and finding a certain way to get information that is pertinent to my day-to-day activity. But perhaps we could go on the no news challenge, maybe possibly do that as a RAJE initiative. Who knows?
Thank you. I actually, I thank you so much for bringing that up, because it was actually, it was one of the things I wanted to bring up, and I did not. I wanted to talk about that. Thank you so much. About when we talk about pessimism, media only gives us negativity. The media preys on our fear. It preys on us. When you open up the Channel 5 news at 10 o'clock at night, or Channel 7, or anything, CNN, 5, open up anything. What are you doing? You're actually feeding yourself pessimism. They don't give you good news. It's sensationalist. And you're right. I think it's a brilliant idea to go on a diet, which is an anti-media diet, because it breeds negativity. It breeds pessimism. Thank you. I love that idea.
My pleasure. Oh, and also there's a quote by Jim Rohn. He says that you must stand guard to the doors of your mind every day. So it correlates also to this lecture. You have to stand guard and guard your mind from the external forces that can enter and impact you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
That's what Elena and I did, and then we were talking about it in the group chat. Like when the whole coronavirus thing happened, everybody was so involved in oh, how many cases now? How many people died? And that's all you heard on the news. And oh, the new symptom is this, and new symptom is that. And then we're like, you know what? Let's just not watch the news, because I'm starting to feel sick, and I know I'm not. So it definitely helped.
Yeah.
You're ahead of the curve.
Yeah. So, I do think, does anybody have anything else to say? So I think we could stop the recording, Rabbi, because I really wanted to, unless you want to leave it on, because I would like to do an exercise. Very interesting. People find, if people identify, let's say let's do a little exercise. Identify whether you are an optimist or a pessimist, and give an example of how you see yourself being an optimist or how you see yourself being a pessimist. What makes you think you are an optimist? What makes you think you are a pessimist?
I think it can be both. I actually don't think that you're fully one or the other. Maybe, but it depends on the times and circumstance. Like you can take the present surroundings now with coronavirus. And I know my personal experience, the very beginning, I was very optimistic. This was, a lot of things that I couldn't do before I was able to do now because of this, because, you're at home versus, commuting to Manhattan and back. So that's like the beginning. And then as time goes on, your view changes, right? So like now it's a little bit, it's upsetting and sort of depressing to see like, oh, it's summer. I want to go on a vacation. I can't go on vacation because you can't go anywhere because nothing is the way it used to be. So I think it's a little bit of both. Like I think there are times when pessimism will sort of it's like a scale, it's like a balance.
Okay,
it
so
outweighs
let me ask you a question. I want to put you on the spot over here, if you don't mind. I'm so glad you're back. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Let me put you on the spot. Let's say you wanted to be an optimist. You said, I want to be an optimist, Dr. Faye. I want to see things from a positive point of view. I want to take advantage of all opportunities. I don't want to be a pessimist. I don't want to have that destructive behavior. Now, so let's say you said to yourself, I want to be an optimist. I want to be identified as an optimist. I don't want to be that person. Sometimes I'm an optimist, but sometimes I'm a pessimist. What could you possibly do with that situation where you where you transitioned into pessimism? Can you give an example of what you could have perceived where your perspective was negative, and maybe you could have spoken to yourself, been mindful, and maybe you could have spoken to yourself and created a situation that was positive? I'm so sorry to put you on the spot, but are you ready, willing, and able to be our experiment?
Sure.
Okay.
So I think that it does depend on how you look at it. So, if you take the vacation example that I gave, right? Yes, it's more of a negative thought to say, I can't do this. But then if you sit back and think, okay, well, what can I do? And then you think about, okay, well, the fact that you're not running to go away and going everywhere else is more of an opportunity to think about what's around you and do something with the people that you can see, as limited as they may be, and make the best of it. So.
Excellent. And then I'll just throw another thing over there. If you could say that same thing again, and instead of saying it in the you can do, and you can change it, and you can do that, can you change your sentence into I?
You want me to say it again?
Own it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. So instead of going on vacation, I can spend more time with my family, more time connecting with friends and everyone around me, and enjoy the time that I have.
Excellent. That was beautiful. Very well done. I'm so happy you joined us. I'm very, very happy. All right, does anybody else want to take a shot at this about, are you an optimist or a pessimist? And then back it up. Very good.
I can go.
I think it's still being recorded, by the way.
Okay, so we can unrecord.
Mark's so anti-recording.
It's off.
Okay. I'm just